Hello and welcome everyone. Today we have with us Ms. Shreya Srivastava, Assistant Professor at Institute of Law, Nirma University, Ahmedabad, a recent yet leading and notable law schools in the country. Ms. Srivastava completed her BA LLB honours from the illustrious Dr. Manohar Lohiya National Law University, Lucknow in 2014, after which she pursued her LLM in corporate law from National Law University, Jodhpur. Since then, she has gone on to qualify UGC Net in 2017, and presently she is pursuing her Ph.D. from Gujrat National Law University alongside teaching. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ritu.
So before we go directly into the questions, to begin with, tell us something about the beginning of your journey and what inspired you to pursue law, comparing your initial interests and choices as all teenagers have.
So I don't think it's mentioned anywhere in my CV, but I was always a commerce student, and in the beginning of my journey of my career, I wanted to pursue CA and continue in the field of corporate law and corporate and economics. And pursuing that, I also did 1 year of BCom honors from Delhi University. But the more I started going out, interacting with people, the more I started seeing what's happening around me, it really made me think, why are things happening the way they are? I mean, why? So a lot of social issues that were happening around at that time. And I didn't have very big dreams of sort of so as to say that I wanted to bring about a change. But the first thing that I wanted to do was to understand why are things happening the way they are. And that really inspired me to try and understand how society is functioning, what kind of laws are there. And that's the reason why I developed an interest in reading about the law, in reading the newspapers and understanding what is going on. And I think that was the beginning of my law journey, so to say. That 1 year of exposure that I had, and yeah, that's how I got interested, and I ended up giving the common law entrance test as it was then.
Right. Did you always want to pursue teaching as a career, or was it something you discovered during law school?
So when I joined law school, I was very sure that it has to be either working in the social sector in terms of being associated with some NGO, or it has to be teaching. And the first 3 years, I'll be very honest, first 3 years, I was very sure and determined that this is what I want to do. And then I eventually, in the third and the final years of my study, I was introduced to corporate law. And very honestly speaking, I think I've always been a researcher. So for I sort of, joined, I did a master's in corporate law, and I tried to, I applied for corporate law jobs, law firm jobs. But then eventually I realized that no, teaching is my calling and teaching is where I want to be. So research and teaching, therefore, I was very sure by the end of 6 years, I would say, of dabbling with law, that teaching is what I want to do. And that's how I ended up teaching, and beginning with research and then teaching.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of pursuing law? How do you suggest students who prepare themselves for CLAT?
That let me be very clear. There is no disadvantage to pursuing law, and the only thing is that one has to, understand and figure out in their journey what side of law they like. There could be litigation, there could be transnational practice, there could be academics, there could be leaving law and doing social work. So I have friends who studied with me in law school, but they eventually left law. Their education of law did help them, but they're now teaching school kids. So one the only thing is that one has to understand their own journey. One has to understand their own likes and dislikes throughout the process that you are reading the law. Like I have had students who in their final year have told me that um, I don't want to pursue law anymore. I want to go to France and learn baking. So I mean it's all about where your interest takes you, and law could be a stepping stone to doing that. That's how I feel. That's what I feel about the study of law, and in the process you get to learn so many things. So for me, it started off with a specialized degree in corporate law. Then I was preparing for certain competitives, and I realized that maybe corporate law is not something that I want to full-fledgedly delve into. I want to read more about family laws or more about socio-economic laws. So it's a constant learning curve, and I only hope that everybody who chooses to enter into the field is able to explore that learning curve without limiting themselves to one set or one set of ideas and one set of notions.
Right. Can you suggest any? Can you suggest books that might help the law aspirants?
So the ones who are right out of school and they're preparing for entering for the CLAT examination, I believe Universal is a very good book that would really help them. And if you look at the pattern of the question paper, you'll see that there are questions on English, there are questions on mathematics, etc., and logical reasoning. Now, one guidebook, Universal, I would suggest. Other than that, something really important is, keep yourself updated and abreast with what is happening in the world around you. That really helps. So the one thing that uh, I would suggest as a mantra for any competitive examination would be reading the newspaper and getting into the habit of being able to analyze the news that you're reading. So I could just pick up a paper today and know what's happening, about COVID, about who is giving us aid, etc. But being able to analyze that is what helps one in the long run. So the vision should not be just one competitive examination. I mean, you could use the same knowledge for any other competitive examination that you're appearing for, right? So a book I would suggest would be Universal. A habit I would suggest would be reading the newspaper. And another thing I would suggest would be to, so for papers like logical reasoning, quantitative ability, or English language. So you can pick up papers of different competitive examinations and past year's papers, and then keep trying to solve them. So that also increases your exposure to the kind of questions that come in the different fields. And the your practice becomes, you're more practiced in the attempting of the questions. So that sort of really helps.
Right. Right. You have pursued your LLB, LLM, and now PhD from three different national law universities. Can you tell us something more about your experience?
So in terms of my experience, okay, so the first thing that I want to put out there is, uh, I don't think there should be any distinction between a student of a national law university and a student of any other universities. And I don't know why we have created this pyramidical structure of NLUs being at the top and other universities not being at the top, right? But in fact, there are government law colleges which give a different kind of exposure altogether. So one thing is this, that this distinction must not exist in any student's mind, any teacher's mind, or any recruiter's mind. This is something that I really want to put across, because it all depends on one's own caliber and the hard work that one is willing to put during their study of the law. The other thing is that if I talk about my own journey of the different law schools that I have been, uh, education is one thing, and I got the best of teachers in all of my law schools, be it my graduation school, be it my post graduation school, or even the place that I'm doing my PhD from. I've got one of the best guides out there. But you know, the the ethos of, I would say, any college education is the kind of cultural exposure that you get once you're out there. Academics is something that you are going to put in your hard work into, and you have your teachers to help you. What helps you evolve as a person is the kind of people you meet at these different places. So I that way I've had a very good exposure in all of my these three law schools. I met people from, you know, across the country in all the three law schools, and that has helped me broaden my vision about the country, about the kind of social structures that are out there, you know, about the kind of food that is out there, about the kind of literature that is out there. And all of this has helped me in my teaching also. So for example, it's only through the stories that I have got to learn from my peers. Somebody's from Bengal, somebody's from Karnataka, somebody's from UP, and the different social structures that exist in these three parts of the country. I have been able to incorporate that in my teaching of family law and put it out there to the students. That society is not the same, right? You will see a different structure existing everywhere. So, uh, the friends that you make, the reading that you do, which is not restricted to your textbook reading, the libraries, they are like the center of any law school. Go to the library. They are a source of wealth for any university, and you will get so many books to read, such a different variety of books to read. So for instance, my libraries always had fiction. They had you know, they had books on socio-economic situations in the country, abroad. They had, of course they will have law books. They had a text on Dharm Shastra. So I was able to read the Dharm Shastra from the basic text. They had a text on, so there were books on Oscar Wilde. I was able to read Oscar Wilde. So that's the kind of exposure that you get in, you know, in the different parts of your college and your college life. And that is something that one must always tap into. And along with that, also focus on your academics. Yeah.
Since you mentioned your education and how different people have evolved, helped in evolving you, who were or are your mentors, personally or professionally, in this journey?
So, professionally, I would say a faculty of mine at NLU Jodhpur, and we were a small group of students, and uh, a professor, and my professor was, you know, in my level of masters, he taught us how to read the law, and that was something very important. Reading the law from the bare provision. Uh, Reference, if you're not able to understand something in the, so I remember in our class, and this was a class on investment law, we were reading the regulations, the FERA FEMA regulations, and there were certain terms that were used in there which we were not able to understand, and he made us refer to the General Clauses Act, right? So that kind of moving around in the law that you have to do, how you can relate one aspect of the law with another, that becomes that was something that I really took from him. And the art of researching, that he was also my dissertation guide. So the art of researching how you can use the material that you have, how you can uh, obliterate the material that you do not require, these are the things, that these are the skills that he helped me develop. So I think he has been a major you know, a major force in my legal education, and continues to be so. Yeah.
Right. And since you mentioned about research, what skills do you believe are essential for mooting, and how much relevance does thorough research hold?
Okay, so mooting, first of all, should be considered as a co-curricular or extracurricular activity. Now, I remember, so what I have seen right now is this cutthroat competition when it comes to moot courts, and which is a very good thing. It helps you thrive, it helps you learn, but at the same time, it must not be, it must not create an effect, or it must not have an impact on your academics. This is a skill that students must learn, that they need to, balance their mooting learning process as well as their academic learning. And research plays a very important role in any mooting. So two things that are absolutely required. One is good research. The other is presence of mind. Because once you're out there, you are speaking before the judges, they can ask you anything. They can ask you even the silliest of questions, right? And maybe you will not have the answer in your moot draft, moot memo. It just has to come to you. So that presence of mind is required. A broad understanding of the problem that is at hand, and being able to analyze that problem. So that is where research will play a very important role.
How would you describe your experience as an assistant professor at Nirma University so far?
So my experience has been brilliant. First of all, I've been lucky to be able to teach the paper that I like.
Right.
And my students are very good. My students are very enthusiastic in learning. Of course, online teaching right now is a little bit of challenge, and I miss the classroom interaction that comes with, general teaching learning process. But Nirma has Nirma gives a lot of exposure both to students as well as to faculty. And my exposure has been very good. My learning curve has been very good when it comes to teaching and being an assistant professor. I have learned how to, ensure that students are not overburdened with information, because when we as faculty prepare for lectures, trust me, every good faculty puts in at least 4 to 5 hours of study before giving 1 hour of a lecture output, right? But at the same time, it is also a responsibility to ensure we don't overburden the students with information. We sort of we ensure that the basics are introduced to the students. There's a good classroom discussion that happens, especially about issues that are present and relevant. So these are things that these are skills that Nirma has helped me develop over time. And like I said, I have been lucky that I have been given a paper that I like to teach. So that automatically adds to the kind of, the classroom interaction that I have.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
What subjects are you currently teaching?
So currently I teach family law, both 1 and 2,
All right.
and some parts of a paper called gender justice.
Okay. Can you recommend some books for your subject for our students out there? Because family law
So,
is very common, and everybody knows about the books. But what are your specific choices?
so one the first thing that I would like to tell people is to read family law as a whole, and not try and divide family law in terms of Hindu law, Christian law, Muslim law, etc.
Right.
When you're reading family law, try and see the entirety of the law. So if you're reading one topic, let's say marriage, then try and see how marriage uh, takes place, is solemnized, or is registered under different sets of laws. And that is when you'll be able to do a good comparative analysis, especially when the country keeps talking about a UCC, right? So until and unless you don't know what is there in the different parts of the law, in the different laws, you won't be able to give a good and a sound opinion.
Right.
So one book that I feel, or rather two books that I feel that do this very beautifully. One is a book by Miss Flavia Agnes that comes in 2 volumes. And this book covers the concept students in terms of learning, is also called, is a book by B.M. Gandhi on family law. It's a book by Eastern Book Company. That again deals with ideas conceptually, right? But people who, these are books that will help you understand the law. If you want to do a very critical analysis of the law, then again, Miss Flavia Agnes's book is very good. Uh, And when you want to do a critical analysis, books like Mullah and Fezi, these will be really helpful to any student out there.
Right.
So these are the books that I would like to recommend.
According to you, what are the important topics that a students should concentrate on in family law?
So it's a honestly it's a very dynamic subject. So if the purpose so and every student can have a different purpose of reading a particular subject. So maybe as a student, I only want to read family law so that I can tackle those questions which come in the competitive examinations. So in when my purpose is that, then I should focus only on the basics of the law. So, for example, marriage, registration, and separation. So, separation, both judicial and divorce, and restitution, and maybe some parts of the basics of adoption and maintenance and succession. This could be a perspective as an aspirant of a competitive examination. Now, some issues where possible under different laws. How does adoption happen under different sets of laws? How is guardianship taken care of? And how does property devolve? Now, that is when you need to practice the law. But let's say you are an academician or you are a researcher, then your perspective is different and you will need to do an in-depth analysis of different issues. So for example, there are newer issues that are coming up in family law. For instance, artificial reproductive technology and family ties, right? Or maybe posthumous children, so children who are born after their parents die, because now new technologies have come up in terms of freezing your reproductive, so eggs and ovum and sperm can be frozen. So what if a child is born subsequently after the death of the parents? Then what impact it has on wills, what impact it has on intestate succession. These are, I mean, these are newer areas of law. Or maybe, you know, online wills that are there, or your online assets, your Facebook accounts, your different social media accounts. They're your assets, they're part of your estate. How do you handle them? How, who do you want to be, who should be entrusted with these ones, if one dies intestate? So that I believe, as a researcher, as an academician, and somebody who wants to bring about, suggest changes in the law, that is where analysis of these different areas of family law would require in-depth study.
Right. As you mentioned about your students, and you're a professor yourself. So as both a professor and a PhD student yourself, what are the challenges that you're facing in virtual classes?
So in terms of teaching, I would say the interaction becomes a little. It's not as dynamic and interesting as it happens in an actual classroom, right? I can see my students, I can see their expressions, they can see me, they can see my expressions. So, and that brings about a lot of liveliness to the classroom. So the one challenge that I face is that the liveliness that is there in a physical classroom, I genuinely miss that. I miss being able to see my students and read their expressions. Are they getting it? Are they bored? You know, are they mad at me for talking so much? These are things I miss being able to observe. But other than that, I think the screen time that all of us have to go through, that's a big challenge. The and you it'll be for all the students out there, it's the amount of self reading that has to be done nowadays, especially online. So these are difficult times, and I believe we need to be considerate, all of us together. We need to be considerate for each other. And if as a faculty I request, please switch on your camera, please switch on your mic, let me hear you, let me see you, then you should be, as students, you should do that and grant me that courtesy. As a faculty, I should be able to reduce the work that you need to put in. And I mean, that kind of cooperation is required. As far as being a PhD candidate myself, so I feel, again, PhDs are self journeys, right? So being in touch with my guide, and again, like I said, that even when one does a PhD, being physically able to meet your guide, um, it sort of channelizes your research in a much better way. And that face-to-face interaction that happens, I'm able to get an immediate review on my work. So that is the kind of thing that I miss about having to do all of this work, or having to do meetings with my guide online. But I would say that as faculty, as PhD guides, or as faculty members, we always try to be out there for our students whenever they need us, and in whatever manner they need us. So whatever doubts they require, as a student teacher relationship, as a mentor mentee relationship, so those things we try and ensure that we are able to manage to the best of our abilities.
Right. You've also qualified UGC Net. Can you guide our aspirants as to how to prepare for the same?
So I did a little differently. I had time at my hand, so I was able to read the books. I mean, books of different subjects, and that's how I prepared for my UGC Net. So for instance, I picked up a very basic book on jurisprudence and I read it, because net, at least the time that I gave it, one paper used to focus a lot on constitution and jurisprudence. So these were the two textbooks that I did read. I read a textbook on constitution. So VN Shukla is what I read for constitution. I read a textbook for jurisprudence. Uh, and then I read the bare provisions, the bare acts of the different laws. So I read the Bare Act of Contract Act. I read it for labor law, and I read it for IPC. Then I picked up a book for torts and I read the book on torts. So and the process of this reading was not to do an in-depth reading at that time, because I knew that I'm preparing for an examination. So the idea was to flip through the text and try and retain as much as possible. That is what I had done for my preparation, because I had the luxury of time at that moment. But for people who don't have so much time for various reasons, they could be, they have families to take care of, they have jobs to take care of. For those people, I would say that pick up some guidebook that is a little reliable, and try and solve as many past year question papers as possible. Because even now, the first paper, which is for general awareness and logical reasoning, that paper requires one to be able to, I mean, you can crack that paper if you have practice, because the questions are similar across different competitive examinations. So for that paper, yes, try and solve as many past year question papers as possible. For the law papers, try and understand the trend that exists. So for example, I knew that when I was giving UGC, I knew that in international law, recognition is a chapter that would definitely be asked. One question on recognition would definitely come. I knew that in torts, one question from nuisance will definitely come. I also knew that in family law, one question from registration of marriage will definitely come. What one can never know with UGC is what will come in constitution and what will come in jurisprudence. Because I remember that when I appeared for the UGC exam, there was a question on jurisprudence, and the answer to that, I kid you not, Ritu, it was I somehow remembered at that point of time that in the book that I had read, The answer was there in the footnote. And for some reason, I had gone through the footnotes. And that's the kind of questions they can ask you in jurisprudence or constitution. So it's difficult. I mean, to find a pattern in these two papers is a little difficult, but for the other papers, there's certainly a pattern. And the more you go through the past year papers, the better you'll be able to analyze the pattern and prepare yourself. So pick up a guidebook, pick up past year's question papers and keep solving them. If you don't have the time, if you have the time, please read bare provisions, because they help you a lot in knowing what the law is and also being able to attempt the questions which deal with landmark cases. So in your bare provision, you will also find the landmark cases. So that's how one can prepare for this examination.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, since preparing for an entrance can be a long and tedious process, do you have some words of wisdom that can motivate and calm the students?
So not that I have given a lot of entrances in my lifetime till now, but I still feel that any entrance examination, first of all. So if you're genuinely interested in reading and learning, the first thing that will happen to you when you start preparing is that you would want to know more. And that is where you will tend to get derailed from the idea of the examination. So for instance, there was a point of time when I was preparing for civil services, and I started reading and, uh, reading different texts, reading different books, reading newspapers, magazines, and I kept wanting to know more and more. And that's when I realized that any examination that you're giving, you should remember that you're giving an exam. So always keep that in mind. That should be the focus. And it's not the number of hours you put in, but the diligence of the number of hours that you put in. So it can't be that today I study for 4 hours and tomorrow I study nothing. So that cannot happen. If you, whatever time you have in preparing for your examination, be diligent with your preparation. Every day put in 2 hours, every day put in 3 hours, how much so ever time that you can afford. Put in that much time, but do it every single day till the day of your examination. And also something that you must do is create a timetable for yourself, so that you are able to focus, give the right amount of focus to every aspect that you will be questioned upon. So if you know that maybe I need to read more about the constitution, and let's say a little less about quantitative abilities, so then prepare your timetable accordingly, that you give more focus to constitution, you give a little less focus to quantabilities, and so on and so forth. So know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and create a schedule for yourself that you follow every day, and trust. And I think that is the only thing that will help you in succeeding in any examination.
Right. Your publications and work experience are an amalgamation of primarily two opposite sectors of law, that is, competition law and family law. Which amongst the two do you think is more appealing to the law students, and why?
Right. So I think as somebody who's interested in research, I think I can do research in different areas of the law, and I would be equally passionate about every research that I do. But in terms of what could be more appealing to students, again, like I said, it's a journey of the self. It's a journey that you will realize what interests you more. So somebody who's interested in the social laws, socio-economic laws, uh, will be interested more in maybe family law than corporate law. Somebody who is interested more in the economics of laws and how there's a correlation, I mean, markets, economic markets, will be more interested in competition law or corporate law or any field of corporate law. So I think it depends on person to person what one's interest area is, and the kind of work they want to do. So that I think will be the guiding factor in figuring out what you like more as a person.
Right. What advice do you have for someone who wishes to switch to the academic side of law?
Oh, please do it. We need good academicians out there.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting field. You get to read a lot, you get to write about what you read, present your views and your opinions, and you can have discussions with your students which will enrich both you and your students. And it's a constant learning that will never end. So if somebody wants to switch to academics, uh, I I I would genuinely urge people to go ahead, see whether it works out for them or not. Uh, and yes, this perception, some people, I wouldn't say all, but some people have this perception that academics is a relatively easy field, and you don't need to work as much as you need to work in a law firm. I would say that if you want to excel in any field, be it law firms, be it academics, be it practice, uh, you need to put in the same amount of hard work, and you can't compare the hard work, right? So, for an academician, if one is really interested, one must be prepared that when you are at office, you not only have to teach, but you also have to focus on doing things for your institute. You have to focus for, so let's say organizing conferences, organizing workshops. That's that's important for academic learning. That is also important for institute building. So you have to be able to put in that work. Now, once your regular office hours come to an end, you must be prepared to put in 3 to 4 hours of study for your lectures. And once those 3 4 hours are over, you must also be ready to put in some hours, 2 to 3 hours for your own research. So that's the kind of, I would say, hard work, and that's the kind of mindset with which one should enter the field of academics. It's not just teaching in the classroom, but it also entails a lot of your own research work. It also entails doing a lot of institute building work. So, and all of these things count in the field of academics, and you must be ready to put in all of that hard work. So
Right.
it's not so easy also, is
Right.
something that I would like to tell the audience.
So, if you were to suggest three changes in the current legal education system, what would they be?
Right. So for the students, I think if we are able to come at a stage where we can probably reduce the uh, number of assessments for the students that are there, and instead of quantity, focus on the quality of assessment. Maybe in terms of giving one research paper in a semester of a particular paper, right? But authentic, genuine research where we give the students time to be able to think and write and express their views. uh, that I think will be really helpful, because this burdening the students with a lot of assessment work impacts their output also, and that I think is not good. It's not healthy for the community as such. For the faculty, I think if faculty can be given an opportunity to do internships, that will really help the faculty also. So for instance, a lot of us, we finish our postgraduate education, and we enroll for our PhD education, and we start the field of enter the field of academics. Now if in the breaks that we get, if let's say institutes, whichever institute it is, if institutes facilitate their faculty and let them go on internships, we can bring that we can bridge the classroom practice divide that exists, and that a lot of recruiters complain about at times, that we have to teach the students how to practice the law once we have recruited them. So if faculty are given that sort of an opportunity, that bridge can be slightly, I would say, lessened. And the third thing would be more and more student and interaction of the student with the practitioners of the law. As much as possible, institutes should do that, and they do that as well. But that it should be qualitative. Again, I would say not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality, it should give a certain output. So maybe, let's say, in a semester, one course that is taken only by a practitioner, right? And the kind of exposure that it can give to the students will be very different from what happens in the classroom as of now. So these are the three things I think, if we are able to accommodate, even if piecemeal, I think we can do wonders in legal education.
Yeah. The last question I have for you is slightly tricky because it can be asked in two different ways. So I'll let you choose the one and then answer further. How have you seen the legal profession change for women during your brief career? Or how have women changed in the legal profession during your brief career?
So yeah, I would like, if I were to talk about how the legal profession has impacted women, and how they have, they have how their trajectory has changed. I would say that one good thing that I have observed, and I have observed it from my time as a student myself, that more and more women are entering the profession as students. We have more and more women who, give the CLAT, who appear and who qualify the examination. Uh, what I feel is that when it comes to the practice of law in any field, so law firms, uh, be it academics, be it the bar or the bench, we need to bring about a balanced work-life, personal life exposure for in all of these areas. And that is going to be healthy not only for the woman in question, but also the man in question. It is equally important for the man, right, to be able to give time to his family, read and reflect. So I think that is something that we need to put across, that there has to be a healthy balance between the work life and the personal life for both women and men. And that is how we'll be able to have, a healthy, stable work environment. In terms of how women have changed, uh, I wouldn't say there has been change, because I think women who want to establish themselves at work have always done it. That, I think, would be my answer to your question.
Right. With that, I think we are done. And thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time and having this enriching conversation with us. We had fun. I had fun. I hope you felt the same.
Thank you so much, Ritu. It was really good speaking to you.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
So until next time, take care, ma'am. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.